Good afternoon, evening. My name is Chantaye McLaughlin, and this is our very first episode of my show on all things relevant media, Unjust. So, quickly, I'm 42 years old, and about 4 or 5 years ago, 7 years ago, I was arrested and I delivered triplets while incarcerated, and I was facing 20 years for charges that weren't mine. So serving and speaking up for people who have been um, faced with the injustice of wrongful incarceration, of their children being missing, people who may have actually done a crime, but the charge and the time doesn't meet the crime. Or like in a couple of weeks, we'll have Kevin Upkins on. Like, how do you commit armed robbery with no weapon? Things like that. That to people like me, I just don't understand. So tonight, we're going to be talking to three brilliant women who have vested stake in this conversation around Matthew Baker Jr. One, we're going to have a conversation about who is Matthew Baker Jr. We're also going to have a conversation about why is it that he is sitting in a jail cell for 6 years, not a prison cell, a jail cell inside of a county jail. We're also going to discuss things like the accomplice law. Like, why is this, there's so many whys, there's so many questions that can be asked. One of the things that I struggle with is I live inside of a very colorful family. And sometimes I have to hear things like, oh, well, my son's biracial. So he has a white dad, so he probably won't experience that. This is America. 1% makes you black. And sometimes it's like these youth, these men, these women, sometimes the white parent has a harder time being with this conversation, because I know as a light-skinned black person, even being with the conversation or Puerto Rican and black, growing up in an area like Savannah, Georgia, sometimes people don't think you're black enough to identify. Or then sometimes people think you're too radical as a black person. That's my son in the background coughing. I refuse to go take him to bed because he's asleep, and we ain't gonna have him up and running around during the show. But really, like, how is it that you can be for the cause? How is it that you can co-parent? How is it that you can be a good parent, but then not be black enough to stand up for your baby just because of the pigmentation of your skin? So this is something that keeps coming up that people aren't addressing either. Like, we take on the Black Lives Matters movement, but we're also forgetting about marginalized communities, those who stand with us in solidarity and say, we love you, we love the color of your skin, we have babies, and our babies are dealing with the same thing that you're dealing with. So we're not going to make it about race, although this is, in my opinion, this case is about race. This case is also about the fact that the state benefit the state, the county. When you're in county jail, people don't realize that the county jails are what fund the libraries and the other buildings inside of the municipalities, because what they do is they use it as an investment. So with a stock portfolio or anything like that, they take this building, the jail, and with the inmates, everybody in body, BODY, that's in this facility, they get money for them. They're counted as stock, as an investment. So Matthew Baker Jr. has been sitting in jail for 6 years. I don't know the actual numbers, but on average, 45 to 60,000 a year in jail for this one individual, times 6. And he's not in prison; he's in jail because they have the death penalty on the table. They are looking to execute this young man, and he is not the person who pulled the trigger. And we're not looking at the fact that while he sits there, like I said, these same libraries that aren't educating us about these kinds of situations, these same libraries that aren't teaching us and teaching our children. These are the facilities that are getting funded from these people sitting in jail, in prison, and incarcerated. So with that being said, I'm going to bring in my first guest. Actually, we're going to wait on Angie. Bobby, hold on one second, Angie. Bear with me. I'm going to bring in Demita. Demita is an activist. Demita Bishop is an activist, and her organization is FAIR, Fighting Against Institutionalized Racism. And with FAIR, what's there is Demita has been organizing for years now. She goes into the courtrooms without a law degree. She's not a paralegal. She's not paid. She's not a paid actress. It's not an infomercial. She is the truth. She goes in there and fights for these people. She gives a voice to the voiceless. She's sitting in her car right now after working, and she's taking care of her family, and she's about to sit here and get on this call and advocate for someone who's not her family, not her man, not one of her family members' friends, someone who she knows just the case and said, this isn't right, and I want to stand up for the truth. So, Demita, I would like for you to just share a little bit about what has it that, like, why would you take the time to take on Matthew's case without knowing this young man? What about him had you say yes to actually standing up for justice?
Okay, I can barely hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
you guys can hear me?
Yes. Let me
Okay.
see something.
Yeah, I'm getting a bad signal all of a sudden, but I don't even know what you
Can you
asked.
hear me?
I mean, I can
Can you hear
barely
me
hear.
better now? Can you hear me better now? Let
Mm-mm.
me see something. Can you hear better now?
I don't think it's you guys. I think it's me.
You're breaking up a little on me. Okay. Check the chat, check the private chat. Okay, if we can't hear Demita, then okay. Well, there is a bad connection there. Angie and Kaylin, can you hear me? Nod your heads.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes? Okay, we're going to bring Angie and Kaylin in. So, Kaylin, Angie, I am so not trying to diminish you or take away for the importance that you add to this conversation. You have personal vested interests. So I'm saving the best for last. Okay. Kaylin, can you share? Kaylin's with Honeysuckle Magazine. She was one of the first people to cover this story of Matthew Baker Jr. And for some who don't know it, there are all types of things that could be said. You may find the bonfire murders. You may find quadruple homicide in Henry County. You may find conversations about mental health, which I'm a mental health advocate, and we'll talk about that later because that's a whole different topic. But right now, what had you say yes to having Matthew Baker Jr. as one of the interviewees or articles that you wrote about for your magazine?
Yeah, thank you again, Chantaye, for having me on. And can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Cool. So I just graduated with my journalism degree in May. I was interning with Honeysuckle Magazine, and the week I was supposed to end my internship, my editor sent me an email from Demita that basically just gave a very quick roundup. Like, there's this dude in Georgia. His name is Matthew Baker Jr. He's in his early 20s, and he's about to get the death sentence for a murder that he's not involved with. So immediately, I thought, okay, young Black man, criminal justice system, this can't be good. And I'm also very passionate about criminal justice. I usually choose more articles to write about criminal justice and the criminal justice system. So that was also another reason why I chose to write it. And it was interesting because I've always been taught to be neutral about everything. So when I write, get all of the facts, get as much information as possible before you choose an angle. So my first article that I wrote about it was just like proposing a question like, isn't this weird how this case is going on and how this person is in jail and they might get sentenced to death, but there's not enough evidence to prove what happened. So here's everything that we know. Here are all of the facts. And going about that was just a mess in itself because all of the local news stories had skewed all of the information. And I partly blame them, but I also blame the law enforcement because that's who they attributed their sources to. So everything was according to police, according to authorities, and they had all of these different versions of what happened, as well as barely any information about Matthew. So if you're talking about
hold on, slow down,
yeah.
Because you just said a mouthful.
Mm-hmm.
And for everyone joining in, this is a conversation, right? So we're going to do things a little different. This is a conversation. So in this conversation, one of the things that you said was that the interviews, like it was a little skewed. What made, like you said that Demita sent in information and you wanted to take on the story because of what Demita said, the passion behind it. But what is it about this case that seemed off for you?
I think the main thing for me was that,
and let me say this, add this to it, inside of the local media's coverage of it. Like, are you based out of Atlanta, Georgia?
No, I'm based out of New Jersey.
Right. So inside of Georgia covering it, what had it be off where you had to come in from Jersey to cover this story?
It was a lack of information. It was the fact that there was so much information about Jacob Koski, the co-defendant, the person who confessed to the murders. And at the end of every article, there was just one sentence that said, Matthew Baker Jr. is the co-defendant and his trial will be set for whatever date, with no extra information about how he's involved. And they also mentioned in those articles that he was almost facing a similar sentence as Jacob Koski, who was also offered the death penalty and life in prison. So that's where I kind of stepped in and said, this is weird. Why would the government, and I mean, it's not a surprise to any of us that the criminal justice system would try to put a Black man down without any evidence. We see it all the time. They even get killed for it in broad daylight. But if I found that because there was still time and because we still had a chance, that I wanted to try to just bring the story to light and put all of the facts out there so that, as journalists do, we give as much information as we can so that the audience can make a decision about what they want to believe.
So, and Angie, I see your face. Like, I know you're ready, Mom. Real quick, Demita, can you clarify something? Because you and I had a conversation and I said, the accomplice law, this is so unjust because why would he be facing the same time as Jacob with the accomplice law being so flawed here in Georgia? And you corrected me and said, no, the accessory law. And I said, hold that thought, because I don't know about the accessory law. I know about the accomplice law. I know about my friends from high school who are serving 30 years in prison on an accomplice law charge, not an accessory. Please share with us, what is the accessory law? You're on mute. Can you hear us? Hold on.
Oh,
Okay, we can. Can you hear
sorry.
us?
You can hear me? Yes.
Okay, can you share with us about the difference between the accomplice law and the accessory law? You're on mute again. Hold on. You muted yourself. Okay, there you go.
Oh.
You're muted again. Uh-oh. All right, so Demita's going to be coming back in. Angie, last but certainly not least, as a mom, like taking yourself out of the situation as being his mom, as being a human being who's watching this person sit in jail, what's there for you?
I really want I'm frustrated. I'm really frustrated about it because not only is my son, not only is he innocent and he's sitting there, but what really frustrates me is the DA and everybody that is the investigators, everybody that's working this case, they're not trying to get to the truth. They're not trying to give these victims' families um, information about what truly happened to their loved ones, and that really, really frustrates me. I do every time that I speak about my son's case to everybody, and even have tried to make my point across to the victims' families because they hate me. They hate my son. They when we walk in there, I feel like I'm in a KKK meeting, and that is true honesty. The way they look at us, the hatred that they have towards us, just me, just because that I'm his mother, and it doesn't hurt me to as far as hurting my feelings, but it hurts me knowing that I've read posts from some of them that call themselves Christians and go into church and they ask God for forgiveness, but then they turn around and say they can never forgive either one of Jacob or my son for what they did to their loved one, which I understand the frustration that comes behind that. But at the same time, you have to stop being so angry about what happened to your loved one so you can actually get closure. And that's what the DA or the court system, period, is not trying to do. Is not closure is not going to bring your child back, but at least having some kind of closure to what happened and why this happened. How did it happen? What made Jacob do what he did? And none of them are trying to do anything about that.
And this is what I'll say, like I lived with bipolar 2 with psychosis for years. I was diagnosed with schizophrenia, schizoaffective disorder, psychosis, depression, mania. Yeah, I mean, all in one diagnosis. I'm the person that manages multi-million-dollar accounts and I'll go from that to being unhoused, homeless, sleeping outside on the streets. So when I say I get it and I get both worlds of it, I really do. Now, what's there, right now I've allowed, we've created the space for Demita, Kaylin, and Angie to kind of preface what this conversation looks like from the standpoint of people who are passionate about him not deserving to be in jail. Now, what we're going to do, Bobby, Robert, he's engineering. Is it possible to pull up the articles? Yes, no? Hold on. Let's pull up, if possible. Can you remove all of us off screen? Let me see. Hold on, ladies. I'm gonna pull everyone off screen. And that's not it. My engineer must just start the article. Oh, the article, I'm looking for the article that came out of Oregon. And so let me see if I can find it really quickly. So what concerned me about all of these articles, and Kaylin, I'm so glad that you stepped in and you decided that you were going to just cast your hat and look into why this young man is sitting here in a Georgia jail. And what's there for me is um, why is it that no one in Georgia is covering the story? Why is it that Demita and Kaylin and Angie would have to go to a station in Oregon to be able to be heard? So there was a show, KBOO. Matthew Baker Jr. is an innocent man who has spent 5 years in jail. This is from November 29th of last year, without a trial for a crime he didn't commit. Baker is facing a possible death sentence in Georgia because he was a black man sitting in a car. This is Oregon, regardless of how you say it. This ain't Georgia. You know, this is a state that we could argue and be presumptuous to say has a lot less black people than Atlanta and the surrounding area. And they are saying in 2016, these are some facts. In Henry County, Georgia, fact, a man named Jacob Koski killed 4 people at a party. Fact. Googled, researched, fact. Jacob has confessed to these killings. So that's not what the article said just yet. But it says, in 2016, in Henry County, Georgia, a man named Jacob Koski killed 4 people at a party. Koski has schizophrenia and is white and has already been tried and convicted for the murders and sentenced to life in prison. Baker, who was a passenger in the vehicle Koski was driving, had no prior knowledge of Koski's actions and did not materially participate in any way in Koski's actions, has been held in jail for 5 years without trial and is facing the death penalty. In addition to Baker, Koski had 3 other white passengers in his vehicle at the time of the murder who did not face similar charges. We don't even know their names. They haven't been charged. They haven't been questioned. They're not, like, where are these other 3 people? And I know that Demita's prepared me by giving me tons of court footage, and I did not have time to make it through it all because it was just lengthy. Like, where are these people's names? When you start looking for the truth, why are they burying it inside of information? Like, one of the videos I watched, it was like 20, 30 minutes before the bailiff showed up. Like, why is this an open court procedure or trial, and it's just air and it's being recorded, and you go to look at the trial and it's like there's nothing happening for 30 minutes. So the question is, if Koski has said, I'm guilty and Matthew is innocent, why is this boy on trial for murder? Why is this boy facing the death penalty? And he's a man now. He's 24. Is he 24, Angie? 24 years old. He has sat in jail. Jail. I had to check my spelling. I'm with you, Kaylin. This journalism degree don't always work out when it comes to simple things like spelling jail. It helped me with handcuffs sometimes. I might break out in handcuffs. But jail, but seriously, y'all, why is he sitting here in jail for 6 years? And so the other one, hold on, that's my stuff. Does anyone have anything that they'd like to add before I go into the article that Kaylin wrote? Y'all are good? Good
I would
space?
like to add, if you don't mind.
Go ahead, Demita.
I would like to add. Can y'all hear? Well,
Yes.
on the one where you saw the dead space, let me tell you what was happening in that court proceeding. They made everyone leave the room except for the defense team, because that was when the body cam footage just automatically surfaced 5 years later. So the defense had not been able to see it yet. So they made us all leave, and they put a mask over the camera so that the defense can watch it without telling everyone else what was on the thing. So that's what you were seeing on that one. And as far as I told you they were lengthy. The reason why the Oregon lady was doing the show is because Where do I begin? I started in Georgia. I started with Atlanta. I reached out to all the news stations. The moment Jacob Kosky wrote me the JPay message asking me to help Matthew, every news station turned me down,
Hold up, hold
even the
up,
black news
hold up, hold
stations.
up,
Everybody
slow
turned
down,
me down.
Demita, pause. Because with me saying Oregon, I'm talking about the fact that no media outlet in Georgia is covering it and the lack of justice there. But can you please a little more about who to you and him reaching out to you and what that conversation looked like?
Well, what happened was I did a podcast about Matthew's case, and Angie came to ARS Atlanta where we filmed it, and we had thousands and thousands of views. Like all of Henry County was watching it, and not Matthews, excuse me, Jacob's advocate said that Jacob reached out to her because they were actually watching it. And at that time, he was in well, he's still in what is it, Georgia Medical. And he told them that, everyone in when he was in Jackson, they watched me every Friday, and everyone was trying to get cases to me. So he asked her to figure out how to get a hold of me. She gave me his JPay information, and from there he sent me the message telling me that he wrote Fox 5 News, both sets of attorneys, the judge, the DA, and told them that Matthew is innocent. He barely knew Matthew at the time of the crime. They have only known each other like 3 days, I believe. And he said that, he has schizophrenia. There's no way Matthew or anybody else at that party knew he was about to snap, because he didn't even know he was about to snap. And the moment that I saw the JPay message, I reached out and went harder for Matthew. That did it for me, for the person that actually committed the crime to say, hey, I did this. They know I did this. Help Matthew. That sealed the deal for me, and I went hard. From there, that's when I reached out. I started with Atlanta, then, Broughton, Georgia. I went to NAN, sat in with Al Sharpton's team, the NAACP of Georgia, the NAACP in New York, the NAACP in DC, and everybody wanted what I wanted. When I get a case, the first thing I ask for is a discovery so I can go through it and see what do they have on this person, what is it. But because it's an ongoing investigation, they're not releasing anything that can help Matthew fight for the case. The attorneys have it, but Matthew should be able to give it to anyone else. And I like to tell everyone that I know most of us don't like Donald Trump. I'm saying most because I don't want to assume, but Donald Trump, under his administration, they passed the Freedom of Information Act, saying that if there's anything that they have against you, they have to show you. You have to be able to look at the evidence they have, any accusers, anything. And they're not releasing any of that to anyone, only Matthew's defense team, who are public defenders. Until I came on board, he hadn't even really been to court. He had his arraignment, and that was it. From there, I've sat through every preliminary with Kaylin watching on Zoom, Angie right beside me, and we built teams, and we had teams of people going into the court, taking notes, writing down everything we hear, which was powerful, because what I don't catch, Kaylin called, whoever else was there might call, Angie called, and we were just exposing so much treachery on this case. Every time I left the court, I would go back on my social media, and I'm telling everybody, look, I now know that he has nothing. They have no blood on his person or clothes, no gunpowder. His fingerprints was not on the gun, but yet, we're still there. And Angie made me aware that the accessory law was into play. And when you asked me about the accomplice law, I looked it up, and they're the exact same thing. So I don't even know how to answer that question. I don't even know. They say the accomplice law and the accessory laws have the same language. But basically, you have to either be the person that committed the crime, or somehow intentionally told them to commit the crime, intentionally caused them to attempt to commit the crime, or intentionally been a part of the crime. And with Jacob having schizophrenia, autism, and ADHD, there's no way anyone can know when his mind is going to go into another place. Jacob had just got released from a mental institution, I believe a week. Caleb could probably confirm that one, but he wasn't supposed to get released. And then here we go, a week later, he's mad because he thinks someone took money from him. He thought they were making fun of him, and he just executed them. Matthew had went home, returned to the party, and from there, I think Jacob had already killed a couple of people before Matthew got back. He didn't know anything was going on until he started hearing the gunshots. So with the accessory law, we all feel that if Matthew is sitting in jail, so should the other three people who were in the car with Matthew. Matthew wasn't the driver. Matthew was in the back seat. The driver, the person sitting beside Matthew, and the other person in the front seat all got off. They all got to go home. Matthew is the only one they kept. And Henry County has a black district attorney. So.
Wow. You said a mouthful. Angie, what's there for you?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, say that again.
What's there for you? Like, you're his mom. So I've asked you the question of looking at this as not being his mom, what's there for you? And you're in court every time, not sometime, every time, all the time. You're taking off work. You're tired. You're fighting for your baby. Like, what's there for you? What's the world?
I'm angry. I'm angry because I've experienced racism before. I've experienced racism pretty much my entire adult life, here and there from different places, just because of the life I choose to live, because I don't choose to be with a white man. But I have never, ever, and never in a million years thought that I would have to be going through something like this with my child. I never thought that I would ever see racism like this. It's just, it breaks my heart, and it hurts me, because I'm going through this now, but this is something that our Black community goes through every day on a daily basis. And I don't understand it. Every interview I do, I say I can't wrap my mind around it, and I can't. I don't understand why there's so much hatred out in the world for Black people, and how the government can just let this continue to go on, and innocent people being incarcerated for crimes they didn't commit. I want to correct something though, just because the nature of his case, and I don't want any information twisted about what's going on with his case or whatever. So just to correct, the lady that did the podcast in Oregon, she got some information incorrect, where you stated that he was in the car with Koski and Koski was driving. No. And I'm going to give you those names of the people that you were asking about and why they're not mentioned in all this other stuff. Okay, so Kayla Head was the driver of the vehicle. It was her vehicle. Brooke Knight was the one that was texting Koski that he was asking her to come, for Brooke to ask Kayla to come and pick them up, because he said that he was getting jumped by 6 people, and him and his sister was getting jumped by 6 people. That's what he told Brooke, so that they come and pick him up. Jacob Williams, he was just a bystander like Matthew. And then you have Matthew. To what Demita said, he, not even from when Koski reached out to Demita, from day one, when Koski went to his preliminary hearings, all of this stuff is on social media. From day one, Koski has maintained Matthew's innocence from that day, from day one. When you'll see a clipping from when the news media was in the courtroom, and Detective LaCroix was saying that Koski named Matthew as his accomplice. Koski had an outburst in court. They had to shut the courtroom down, get the news media out, because he went berserk in there. And you hear him on national TV say, "No, I never said that."
Yeah, because when you're, this is my own personal lived experience here. When you are in psychosis or a mental health breakdown, it's not even so much of the concept of voices in your head telling you to say this. It's when there's too much motion, you can be triggered. So when you're sitting in court, which I've sat in court before, in a psychosis state, and when people start moving around and the bail, you're triggered and you're subject to say anything. It's because mental health is too much. It's a chemical imbalance, so it's too much going on, and a lot of things going on inside of your brain activity, and it's going at a speed that you can't control it. So if he blurts out, "Matthew is my accomplice," and then later on says, "No,
No, he never said that. The detective LaCroix,
but
he's
didn't
the
the
one.
detective lie on the stand?"
Yes, multiple times. So from the beginning he lied because, okay, ultimately, right now, and this is the same question that I've been asking Matthew's attorneys and they still cannot give me an answer for, is from the beginning when they arrested Matthew, they blasted his name all over social media, stating that he was Jacob's accomplice, that he provided the guns to him, that that's how he was his accomplice. But then they didn't even finish their investigation correctly because it was probably like a couple of weeks later after Koski went to his preliminary hearing. Then they came out with a news clipping at like 12 o'clock, which was nobody watches the news at 12 o'clock. So you wouldn't have seen it. So now you still got all these different nationality people. I got to be politically correct here that believe.
Oh no, you don't have to be politically correct here. You just don't have. You can't use any of the major no words. You can say what you want to say here.
Whether you got all the racist white people still believing that the black kid is a part of this crime and the black kid provided Koski the gun and made him shoot them, when in actuality that is not true, because after on the news clipping it says later on in investigation they realized that Koski stole the guns from the house.
Yeah, because I was going to say that I read a couple of things. Like I said, I did not get through all of the court proceedings, but I didn't see anywhere in there that Matthew provided the gun. So if there's
that's what Kaylin was saying when she was explaining earlier, how there's so many different stories here and there, and it's even like now with the news, with them going to court, they have dragged this out for so long that they can't remember what they said when Detective LaCroix first went to preliminary hearing. Everything he said then is not the same, and he didn't mention anything new or the same this last time when they went to court. He's lied under oath, and they just think it's okay and let it go.
So why is it that his attorneys, Matthews, aren't arguing around the due process of law? Like, why he's being denied the due process of law? He's been in jail for 6 years, and I get that it's a death penalty case.
You gotta understand. You gotta understand that they're actually.
He hasn't been sentenced. He hasn't even gone to trial for real.
They haven't even.
No, we're not there yet.
Go ahead, Demita.
No, can y'all hear me? I'm getting frustrated because I think can't no one hear me because I'm getting the squiggly lines.
Can you see me?
Can y'all hear me?
Yes. Yeah, we can hear
see
you.
Y'all now. Yeah. Okay.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, you go. Share to me to share.
Oh, I was well, I was only saying that, once you get to this point, though, you can't go back. The only thing they could have, it's kind of too late to file the motion to dismiss because you have deadlines and stuff to meet. So we have to see it through. I don't know why they're not arguing the due process or anything else. They keep trying to get Matthew to sign a 4-life sentence plea or a life without the possibility of parole plea.
Slow down. What is that? For people who don't know what that is. What's that?
What?
Life without parole. Plea.
Life without parole?
Plea. A plea. What does that mean? If he signed that plea and then later on they said, oh, we had it wrong, we got all this evidence showing he's innocent, what would he be facing? What does that mean?
Yeah, that Well, first of all, that wouldn't even happen. Once you sign the plea, they're not going back through your information. It's a contract. A plea is a contract. So if I sign a plea for life without the possibility of parole, I'm basically signing my life to the government. So even if somebody wants to do their own investigation and say, wait a minute, Demita's actually innocent, it doesn't even matter. I signed a plea, which on the plea it says you're admitting guilt to the crime. And then you're agreeing to the terms and the conditions of admitting guilt. So, I always tell people, I don't care if you did it, I would never sign my life away, because laws change every year. There might be a law that says murder is only guilty if you do it at 2 o'clock. Well, you signed your life away, so you got to still honor that time. So,
Yeah. Thank you for
and that's
clarifying
what
that,
public
Demita.
defenders,
No,
right. Another thing I
continue
want
on.
to say real quick is public defenders.
Go. You got it.
Okay,
Go, Demita.
public defenders are not trial attorneys. I was saying public defenders are not trial attorneys, so their job is to get you to sign a plea so that um, they don't have to put up the money to go to trial. So that's what we're dealing with Matthew and anyone who doesn't have the money to pay for an attorney. They're stuck with a public defender whose job really is just to get you to sign a plea. So what me and Kaylin and Angie are doing, forcing public defenders to be trial attorneys. We're forcing them to. We're not backing off of it. And we're really hoping that we can see this all the way through and it actually ends in his freedom, so that hopefully by the grace of God, we convince other peoples nationally to fight back and not just take when you're innocent.
Yeah. So,
I wanna something just came up and I wanted to share that. I don't know if everyone can see it or whatever, but I'm my first podcast I did with Demita that she was saying earlier. At the time, Matthew had 13 charges on him. I did my first podcast with Demita. 2 weeks after that, we had to go to court. That was going to be his first appearance in court in 3 years since the pandemic or whatever. So when I got a letter in the mail that I had to tell his attorneys, because his attorneys didn't tell me, but they added additional charges to him. So now he has 30 charges on him, and he didn't even have a gun in his hand. He didn't even pull a trigger. He didn't even know that none of this was going to happen, but he has 30 charges. So I'm pretty sure that if his attorneys see this email and Darius Patello and everybody else that is in Henry County sees this live, I'm pretty sure they're going to add more charges. But like I told them before, keep adding the charges, because no matter what, we're still going to go to trial. I'm never going to shut up talking about his innocence. If he was guilty, I wouldn't be speaking like I am if he was guilty. I didn't raise my kids like that, but I know for a fact that he is innocent. It's on YouTube. So if anybody wants to read it, if they want to see it for themselves and hear it for themselves, it's on there. It's on YouTube.
well, I'll say this too. I was always raised right is right, wrong is wrong. I don't know how much I believe that. I just believe certain things just are. Like,
Mm-hmm.
that's what I live with, to give me some level of empowerment around things that aren't what I think they should be. Right? Like, it's always working for our greater good. Because had this not been the conversation, then this wouldn't be the conversation. So Matthew gets to have a legacy of this being the conversation, and him making this kind of
Mm-hmm.
difference inside of what Demita advocates around, or is an activist around, fighting against institutionalized railroading. And this is a clear case of institutionalized railroading. Like, 30 charges. How many Koski
Yes.
have? Tiffany Long, you know. So
He Koski only had, I think Koski ended up only having I think he had like 14 or 15 charges. So which I still don't
Yes.
understand how they can do this, but they gave him 4 malice murder, 4 felony murder, 4 aggravated assault. I think they gave him 4 charges of a firearm during the commission of a felony. And they gave him charge with theft by taking. That's what Koski had, because he stole the gun. Matthew only had 4 felony murder charges, 4 malice murder charges, 4 aggravated assault, and 1 commission of a firearm charge to intent to commit a felony or whatever it was. Those were all of his charges at first. Now they have stuck him with all of those prior, the 4 felony, 4 malice, 4 aggravated, the 1 gun charge, and then now they've added 12, actually made it 12 felony murder charges and 2 robbery. But I don't understand where and all of this was because this was said in court. Darius Patello announced to his attorneys, because his attorneys argued that they didn't know anything about the additional charges coming about. And he was like, yes, we discussed this before because I told y'all prior to this that if a plea wasn't signed, that their additional charges would be added. So you're telling me that you're going to bully my son into signing a plea because it's all political. So to answer that question that you asked earlier, it's political. This is Darius Patello's like first term as district attorney, and you want to make all these white people happy so they'll vote for you again next year. But you're not taking my baby
for something else. Yeah, or he might have some other political endeavors that we don't know nothing about.
Possibly. And his
Right.
and what we have found out is, now I'm CIA. I pinpoint everything. I'm picking out everything that I can find out. I listen closely. Sometimes I might not understand it the first go around, but that's why I got Demita and Kaylin, because they help me understand what I need. But Matthew's head attorney and Darius Patello, they worked together before in DeKalb County. So they know each other. They don't want to go head to head with each other. They don't want to butt heads. They want to be on the same team. So therefore, that's why I feel like his attorneys is not really going full force with trying to fight for his life and actually going to trial. They keep telling me they don't put all their cards on the table. They don't do this. They don't do that. But yet, in the same conversation, when we had a Zoom meeting before this last time he had to go to court, the head attorney, Shayla, told me that I make her job difficult to deal with. How do I make your job difficult to deal with? Because I make you do your job? Because I keep asking you, why are they still holding my son? You don't have nothing. The lady came that does the evidence or whatever, appeared in court, and she said they didn't find no evidence on Matthew. No gunpowder residue, no blood, no DNA, nothing. You have not a thing. Period.
And let me say this too. Sometimes people forget who pays the public defenders. Anyone on here?
We do.
The state. Mm-hmm.
We pay them with our taxes.
The county, the taxpayer dollars. And where does this money come from? Like, we know it's the taxpayers' dollars, but at the end of the day, they're collecting their checks from the same place that the district attorneys are collecting their checks from. They sit, and the judges, like, it's all the same thing. They're going to law school with the same people that they're sitting across the room from. It's all the same thing. So right now it's 9:50, and I want to be responsible for the time. What's there is this conversation needs more. It needs more. So I'd like to continue this conversation to a second part next week. And between now and next week, Angie is going to make it between Angie, Demita, and Kaylin so that we can actually speak to Matthew. It won't be live. The show next week will be live, but we'll be able to speak to Matthew and hear what he has to say, and also hear his treatment. You know, when I was in jail, there were certain things that happened that shouldn't have happened. So we need to get to the bottom of this. Why is he in jail? Why is he in jail? Why is he facing 30 charges? Why is there this lack of justice? Why is it that Kalen would have to come in from New Jersey as his advocate. Like all of that. Where is the NAACP? You know, I'll say that. I might get put out of a meeting. Bobby, where your folks at, Bobby? So,
Well,
that,
just
no,
in their
no,
defense, there was no discovery, so it was hard for me. It was hard
I'm
for me
not
without the
hearing that.
discovery to get
You're
anyone
not.
to.
Demeter, you can pay your membership dues and say that you're with the NAACP. So I don't want to hear about discovery or not. The NAACP back during the SCLC, all like I got memberships to a bunch of these organizations back during Dr. King's time. They would sit there and they weren't trying to figure out, do you already have this before I step in? They'd go in there with you and try to get what was necessary. You should not have to be out here doing all of this legwork by yourself when these are machines. And I will say that to anybody in the NAACP. They don't pay these bills at this house. They don't feed my kids. They don't put clothes on my back. And I got on a laundry dress to make my girlfriend Carol happy. So I'm going to say what I need to say. They need to get behind. They are a machine. When's the last time that they've acted as a machine? So they need to be that and be that for this young man.
Well,
Now,
I
when
feel
it's
our
time for a press
organization
conference,
should. Right
they'll
now,
be there.
nobody turns their
None of
attention
them
to
are
the
there.
courtroom, and they need to because, you know, the government will put out numbers. Like I say, they'll say we have over 500,000.
Uh-oh. This is the wrong time for Demeter to go out. Come back on. Come back on. Well, while Demeter's connection is coming back through, it's 9:53. Kaylin, do you mind reading your article? Can I pull it up on the screen? Can you see? Let me see. I don't know what you can
I have
see.
mine pulled up just in case.
You have it pulled up? Okay, great.
It is kind of long, so did you want me to just like go through it head to toe?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's 9:53. I think you can do it in 7 minutes. You think
All
so?
Right. Yeah, and if I have to, skip around, I'll get to all of the important parts. But
Okay,
basically, I'm going to be citing from the follow-up report that I did on the incident and Matthew's case. And this is following one of the hearings that I actually flew down to Georgia to go sit into, because that was when they were presenting the body cam footage. And the way that they have the camera set up in the courtroom, they don't really care who's watching virtually. So I wanted to see what was on the footage. So I took a trip down to meet everyone and figure out what was going on. So basically, for anyone who wants to know exactly what happened the night of the incident, the reason that Matthew is connected to this crime and what the crime is, Matthew, Kayla Head, Brooke Knight, and Jacob Williams left Matthew's house and went to a party at Moccasin Gap on Moccasin Gap Road. It was a bonfire party. They were invited by Jacob Koski's sister. Jacob Koski was also at the party, but he did not go with this group of people that Matthew was with. He was already there by the time they came. They were hanging out for a bit, for about 15 minutes, and then the sister came out and told Matthew and his friends, "You guys got to dip." And they didn't ask any questions why. They were just like, if we're not welcome, then we'll just leave. That's fine. So they left. A couple hours later, Jacob texted Brooke, said, "I need you to come pick me up. I think these group of people are about to jump me." Okay. So Brooke said, "Who's trying to come with me to go get Jacob?" Matthew did not want to go. He was comfortable in his house. He was with his sister and at her time, her newborn child. And he said, "My mom told me to stay here. I'm about to follow my mom's rules. I'm not going anywhere." And then he just decided, you know what, if we're just going to go pick him up and then drop him back off home, nothing else, then fine, I'll take the ride. So his sister even said, Matthew's sister even said, he came into my room and he said, "I'll be right back. I'm just going to go pick up somebody, bring them home, and then I'll be back at the house." So the group goes back to the house. They park at the end of the driveway. If you see on Google Maps what this layout looks like, at the end of the driveway, there's no lights. There's no lights leading up to the house. It's pitch black. So Matthew gets out of the car and he walks up to Jacob and he asks him, "Where are the people who were trying to hurt you?" And Koski doesn't say anything. Matthew said, "I didn't walk in the house. He just said they were going to come out and start fighting us." Jacob walked up to the front door, realized that the door was locked, And he said, something in my mind went off and I knocked on the door. And then the party host, Destiny Ollinger, answered the door. I walked in and for some reason I snapped. Destiny was the first person shot at point blank range as Koski walked inside the house. The following 5 to 10 shots, Matthew heard, but he didn't see land, and he only heard them from in front of the house where he was standing. He said he didn't know what to do. He was scared. Once the shooting stopped, Koski looked around the house, walked out of the house, and then looked at Matthew and said, okay, let's go. He also looked at Matthew and said, if you say anything, I'll shoot you.
Okay, we're going to stop right there.
Mm-hmm.
Let me stop you right there. Koski told Matthew he was going to shoot him if he said anything, right?
Yes.
So when we continue with part 2, do you mind opening with sharing the rest of your article?
Yeah.
And then we'll have a conversation with Matthew. Angie, are you okay? Are you okay to do this?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, fine.
Okay, Demita, you good?
I don't know what I missed.
Okay. So it's 9:58 and we're about to sign out. It's a 1-hour show. So it's 9:58. We're going to continue a part 2 next week. Okay. So I'm going to send you all to the back room. Thank you all for your courage.
Thank you.
Whew. This is the first show of Unjust. If you know, I'm going to put my email in the chat. My private personal one and my company one. So if you know of anyone who you feel has been treated in an unjust manner and there's a lack of justice, please use your voice. You know, in this day and time, if we didn't learn anything from George Floyd, the only thing that separated that situation from what happens every day was there was actually footage. The world got to see what was going on. So we don't use our voice enough and we don't control our media enough. And in this situation, we have a little more access and control over our media. So please use your voice and share about Matthew and share about any other case that you know of. We'll also be speaking with Kevin Upkins soon. So I have plenty of documentation on this case as well. So thank you all for a good show. Thank you. Thank you, Angie, for your courage. Thank you, Kaylin, for taking on this and being a champion. And thank you, Demita, for showing up every day in court and in life for these people. Have a good night.